is week 4, Sharpening the Edge podcast. Lucas Reimink, Dennis Fithian, Bays and Blue review as we are ready to go. And, there are good weeks, good slates, and there are great slates. And this one, Lucas, falls in the latter category. You've got 6 top 25 matchups. And of course, you also have Michigan and other Big Ten teams opening up conference play. It is a great day of college football. How are you going to attack it?
I don't know. It's a lot. There's a lot of games to choose from, but to be honest with you, I feel like the Vegas lines are kind of catching up to where I believe they should be. I think they're getting a little bit more accurate as the season goes along. So we're going to try our best. 7-2 last week, so that's always nice. Got some good positive momentum going, so hopefully we can keep it up.
Well, Vegas doesn't have all those tall, shiny buildings and big fountains for nothing. So, they're pretty good. However, I'm going to put a dent in them myself. I feel pretty good about all of my selections. If you're a first timer joining us, if you watch this show live, you can get your picks in, questions, all of those things. We have 9 different units that we put to you out there, 9 picks each week. That includes Michigan, Michigan State, the Lions. We also provide you with 3 best bets. We've got a prop, a parlay, and a lock of the week. And that gets us to, I'd say, without further ado, let's pick these local teams. And as always, we start with Michigan, 24.5, wherever you're at. And looking at it, Lucas, I'll let you kick things off. How are you looking at this Michigan-Rutgers game tomorrow at noon?
Sure. So I'm going to pick Rutgers for a few reasons here to cover. Number one, this kind of reminds me of the Illinois game of last year. I think last year's Illinois team is kind of similarly built to how Rutgers is this year. Both teams play good defense. They tackle well. Their assignment sound, and they both want to run the football on offense, and they're both pretty good at doing so. And then it's at home, so it's a little bit of a sleeper. I get that it's Michigan's first Big Ten game, but I think nationally, I think it's kind of a game you don't really look at and like, oh, Michigan might be in trouble. But I think this game has the build to be a lot closer than people expect it to be. There are a few reasons, like Michigan not looking as crisp last week. I don't know if it's a combination of like Harbaugh not being there, the play calling just not getting synced up with what JJ wants to do. It seems like he was pressing a little bit after he threw that first one, and he just never kind of got back into the good rhythm. So I don't think Michigan's gonna be like critical danger of losing this one because I do think they're the better team. Rutgers quarterback in particular really struggles to throw the football, so they're going to be pretty one-dimensional. But I think they will have more success than you think running the football. So I think that'll keep them in the game. They'll be able to wind clock. I think this is more of like a 14 to 17 point Michigan win. That'll be like 7 to 10 for most of the game, and Michigan like add on a touchdown or 2 at the end. But I'll take Rutgers plus 24.5 here pretty gladly.
Yeah, I mean, you're just patting Vegas on the back. When I saw this game and thought about where I would put the line, it was way lower than where Vegas put it at. So I don't know, like maybe they do know what they're talking about, but I'm with you. I don't think Michigan is going to cover 24 points. I thought this was going to be right around 10 points, not 24. So I think it's way off. And I like Michigan to win this game, but I think it's going to be a feeling out process. And I could see Michigan, really trying to establish a run and, trying to play things safe in the early going in their Big Ten opener. I like Michigan to win this game 27-16, but I'll take those 24 points just like you. Let's go to East Lansing. Michigan State was completely embarrassed last week against Washington. The Huskies creamed them. That game was over. Well, it was over before we started. We were both on top of that. We knew what was going to happen there. Meanwhile, this time, here comes Maryland. I've watched Maryland play the beginning of their last 2 games, getting down 14-0, and then climb back and win some games. I think it's a similar type situation here. I think Maryland wins the game, but that's 7.5 is too many. Give me Michigan State and give me those points. I'll take MSU plus 7.5.
I'm going to fight you on this one, but I don't feel great about it. So I think this line is pretty accurate. I talked a little bit last week about how Michigan State would respond following the whole Mel Tucker situation. Clearly, they laid an egg last week, but I'm not. I don't know. It's really hard to get a good read on what this Michigan State team is going to be the rest of the season, let alone in any given individual week. The reason I'm going to go with Maryland though is kind of like the matchup wise. I kind of view them as like a 70 to 80% version of what Washington is. They like to chuck it. They like to throw the ball around the yard. They got a couple good receivers who are pretty good. Not as good as Washington's, but they're pretty good. And Talia Tagovailoa is a pretty good quarterback. Not quite as good as Penix, but he's still pretty good. And they play like solid defense actually, which is kind of surprising given to what they have been in the last few years. But they got a lot better last year on defense, and they've kind of carried it over thus far into this year. So it's really, this game kind of comes down to how Talia takes care of the football, in my opinion. We saw MSU's secondary last week got lit up yet again. It seems like that's been a reoccurring issue for the last 3 or 4 years. And I don't really see a reason as to why that would suddenly reverse course, and now they would be able to defend this Maryland passing attack. So I'll take the Terps to cover the 7.5 on the road.
Interesting. The Terps Huskers light, and so that's why you take them. I get your reasoning there. Let's go to the pros. The Lions are -3. The injury report, not really looking good as it just came out. No Decker, no Vitae on the offensive line, and the defensive backs, Mosley and Joseph, they're out. David Montgomery's doubtful, but I don't think anybody thinks he's going to play. And Amon-Ra St. Brown's got that busted up toe. He'll probably play, but he's not going to be anywhere near 100%. Meanwhile, all of that being said, this is a game that the Lions have to win. And I'm going to lay those 3 points. I love the Lions in this game. I know I picked them last week, but I really like them in this one. I'll put my money on the Detroit Lions -3, even with all of those injuries. Huge game. It better be the Jahmyr Gibbs game, with Bijan Robinson on the other side and Montgomery out. Lions better use them early and often. I think they will. And I like the Lions to cover that 3 points.
Interesting. I honestly think 3 is like right on the nose. I could like that. That's exactly where I would have said it. Can't really split it either way, so I'm gonna go with the over 46 here. The Lions to me are kind of like an over team. That's just kind of how they're built. The defense looked pretty bad last week. Geno Smith was shredding that secondary pretty much up and down the field whenever he wanted to. And then the Lions defense was failing to take advantage of the 2 starting offensive tackles last week for Seattle. They were out. I talked a little bit about that. They had a really quiet game rushing the passer. So I have kind of concerns about that, about their ability to get pressure on the passer. It seems like Hutch is banged up a little bit. And then over on the Lions offense, they look pretty good. I think they got a lot of pieces that you like. And I know the Falcons aren't like a high octane team. They like to run the ball, but I think going against kind of like what I think, at least right now, is a softer Lions secondary. I think both teams should be able to get into the mid-20s, like 28, 20. I guess it'd be 27-24 is kind of what I'm expecting this game to be. So I will take 46 there.
46. I think it's going to be 51. So I agree with you on that over. Nice selection when it comes down to the over. All right. That gets us to our best bets of the week. And I'm going to rattle mine off here. I always feel good, going over the menu this week for everyone. I just want to tell you, I feel great about these picks. And we'll see, I was going into a night game in the Happy Valley, and I watched that Penn State team go to Illinois, and it's not that impressive of an offense. I think Penn State's going to win the game, but I think 14.5 points, way too many for Iowa, who still plays some pretty good defense. Florida State's an interesting team. They score a lot. Clemson, the thing that I think Clemson, this number here, people just think because Florida State has to lose a game and, Clemson is Clemson. But, man, they got beat by Duke. And what was it, 14-14 against Charleston Southern, for Clemson. I think Florida State's going to win this one handily. I'll easily lay the 2.5 on the road. And then I think another game where people are just going to look at the name recognition is Alabama. Alabama's got trouble on their offensive line. Obviously, they've got trouble at quarterback. And so I think Ole Miss comes in. I think I could see Ole Miss actually pulling the upset here. I'll take the 6.5. So give me Ole Miss, Iowa, and Florida State for my 3 best bets of the day.
No fights in this group, so
Oh,
I will start off UCLA and Utah. I'm going to take the Bruins plus 5.5. I liked UCLA a lot coming into the year. I think in this particular game, I think UCLA has a chance to win this game outright, so I'll gladly take those 5.5. Dante Moore, Michigan fans probably remember from the recruiting cycle 2023. He's been really good so far for UCLA. They've kind of split time at quarterback early, but they seem settled on Dante Moore now, and he's looked good when he's been in there. But UCLA really likes to run the football. That's kind of their bread and butter. They do it quite well. Chip Kelly's high up tempo. They like to run the ball, though. It's kind of different from what they did at Oregon, where they were more of a throwing. Now it's more of a running focused. And I think that suits this UCLA offensive line really well. They're a pretty good run blocking offensive line. And then I think this is Chip Kelly's best defense he's had since he's been in Westwood. So I think that's a good plus for UCLA as well. I think they're going to be a contender in the Pac-12. I think they'll be able to cover this 5.5 here. Then over for Utah on their side, it sounds like Cam Rising could be able to give it a go for Utah. He's kind of their star quarterback. That's kind of why this number, it started out like 3.5, 4 earlier this week, and it's leaked out to 5.5 now. That's probably why it sounds like Cam Rising's going to play. But I liked it. I was going to take UCLA anyways, so I'm just going to take those points. I think it's just artificially inflated based upon the news that Cam Rising will be back. I think they set it at 4, assuming Rising was going to play. Is kind of how I viewed it. And then once the public started jumping in, they started just moving it just to balance out the money. But anyways, so a lot of reasons why I like UCLA. I will take them to cover that 5.5 there. I'll touch on the Florida State Clemson game as well. Don't have a pick on the spread. I was a little bit scared away. I don't know. It just feels like Clemson to me. I agree with you. I think Florida State's a better team. They've been the better team through these first few weeks. But to me, it just seems like a game that Clemson just kind of comes up with winning. So I was a little scared of the total. So I'm not going to touch that, but I will take the over 55.5. Mostly because I have questions about both of these defenses. Florida State in particular, the defense, I don't think it's very good. Most of the advanced statistics have them in like the 50 to 75 range in terms of like where their defense is ranked. And I think both offenses in this game are good to really good. Cade Klubnik, Garrett Riley, they haven't really found their stride yet in terms of putting up points, but they've been able to move the football effectively. It's just been about finishing drives once they get into the red zone and area. And then Jordan Travis, a little bit banged up, got injured a little bit in that the Boston College game last week, but it's a non-throwing shoulder, so I don't really expect that to be an issue. I think both teams will get to about 30, so that gives me an easy over here on that 56.5. And then I just had to pick something from this game, Ohio State, Notre Dame. I'm going to ride with the Buckeyes. I like this really anything under 6. It's kind of just a assumption. I really believe that Ohio State has another gear on offense that we haven't really seen. The first 3 games, Cal McCord kind of still getting his feet wet. First 2 games, he didn't look very good, but last week he looked a lot better. I get that it was Western Kentucky, but I think regardless of who is playing defense against them, I think him just looking good is a step in the right direction. And then this matchup I think it's pretty interesting. Notre Dame has a good O-line, so they'll be able to match up against OSU's defense pretty well. But I think Jim Knowles is probably going to have almost a carbon copy of what he did to Michigan last year, where he's going to try and load the box, try and stop the run from that offensive line, Audric Estime, try and contain him as much as possible, and then force the DBs to cover one-on-one outside. And I think Notre Dame's wide receivers are arguably the worst unit on Notre Dame's roster. So to me, it seems like they're going to struggle to separate downfield. I like Hartman. I like running back in the offensive line. I just don't like their wide receivers. I think the Buckeyes can win by about a touchdown here. I think it'll be a good game, though. So that'll be a good one to follow.
Nice analysis. I'm not going to agree with you as a spoiler when I come up with some of my selections here, but I like all the things that you say. And the Michigan Moose covers both of our picks, with Florida State, me winning by 2.5 and you going over. There's Lucas's pick up on the screen. If you're just listening to the podcast, UCLA plus 5.5, Florida State and Clemson going over 55.5. And he loves Ohio State. Over. I mean, laying the 3.5 points. OSU, here's a 38-31 pick for Notre Dame from the Moose. You know, it's such a great week of college football. Tomorrow, it's good this Saturday, and then a good weekend overall. Man, I'm firing a bunch of different parlays, so I'm going to give you my parlays and my prop. Man, I like Bijan Robinson. Over 22.5 receiving seems like a steal. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to score a touchdown. I think the Lions are going to win. That's a plus 395, but that's not the one I'm going to go to. I've already gone to the window with Notre Dame on the money line. Also, I like Washington State at home on the money line. They're getting 3 points. Oregon State, I think they can just win that game outright. So if you combine those two, you get plus 415. Notre Dame and Washington State on the money line. That's where I'm going when it comes down to the prop. The parlay. That is my prop that I put in there. There's a bunch of other ones that I like, but that's the one that I'm going to give you with Bijan, with Jahmyr Gibbs, and with the Lions. That's plus 395. I guess those are both parlays. So I think I could just go with the prop of Bijan and separate it, but I've kind of jumbled it all together. Were you able to understand that? Because I gave 2 parlays, but there's a prop in there as well.
Yeah, I was fine. Yeah, I got you.
All right. I was confused.
I'll go with
a while after that. I've been firing them off with this great week. I got a lot of action going on,
Yeah, for my parlay, I won the parlay last week. It wasn't like huge odds, just 6 favorites who I thought would win across college football, but I hit. So I'm gonna kind of keep with that theme here. I'm gonna take NC State to beat Virginia. I've bet against Virginia quite a bit this year. They're very bad. It's really just a fading Virginia play here. NC State, they're decent. Offense hasn't really clicked yet, kind of like I thought it might preseason. But I don't think Virginia is good enough to give them any real trouble there. I'm going to take Oklahoma to beat Cincinnati. If anyone's watched any of Oklahoma's games or even just looked at the box scores, they've just been killing it on offense. I think that'll continue this week. Cincinnati's defense is 47th nationally in yards per attempt allowed. And despite paying a schedule of Eastern Kentucky, Pitt, and Miami of Ohio, none of those teams are exactly juggernaut offenses that chuck around the yard a lot. So I don't think Oklahoma has any problems there. Side note, Andrew Anthony is their leading receiver right now, so that's kind of interesting. But and then another team I'm going to bet on to win this week, Texas A&M. I have them beating Auburn. Connor Wegman's actually been pretty good this year for Texas A&M. I think it's getting lost in kind of the team struggling a little bit. Their secondary for A&M is really their big weakness, and Auburn's offense. I haven't really seen anything from them that gives me any confidence that they'll be able to beat anyone through the air. And that's really the way to beat this Texas A&M team. There's chuck the ball over the yard. Peyton Thorne there, former MSU quarterback. He struggled quite a bit, and they've rotated quarterbacks a little bit too because none of them have looked very good. So I'll take the Aggies to win that one pretty easy. And then Illinois to beat FAU. Played Penn State last week. I was watching that quite a bit. They really didn't play that bad except for the 5 turnovers by Luke Altmaier. He threw 3 or 4 picks. I think 3 of them were in the first half. So really just bad game with turnovers. So I think they need to kind of a bounce back. They get FAU this week. Former Texas and Nebraska quarterback Casey Thompson is their starting quarterback. He just got ruled out for the rest of the year. So it's backup quarterback for FAU against Illinois. I don't think Illinois will have any problems there. I'd like them to cover the spread there as well, but I'll include them in my parlay here. So that parlay, the 4 of those, that is plus 130. So I like those. I like the odds, and I think I got another good chance to hit another prop. And then I'll go right over to my prop. Sticking with the Notre Dame Ohio State game, I'm going to take Marvin Harrison's over 88.5 receiving yards. I was a little surprised it's this low. And I get why. Notre Dame has a pretty good secondary. In particular, they have a good corner who most likely will try and shadow him as much as they can. But I still think if you're Ohio State, and you plan on winning this game on the road and getting Cal McCord comfortable, the best way to do that is to feature Marvin Harrison as much as you possibly can. So I think he'll be able to get to 100 yards in this game. So I like that prop, 88.5. I think he'll get over that.
It sounds good. When you look at it, the thing, this worked for you, that 4-team Moneyline parlay last week, and you got all those games in there. I'm just the thing about when it comes to Notre Dame is I give you my best bet there, Lucas, is that I'm throwing it up there. Not only am I using them in my parlay, I'm also using them in my lock of the week. They've got the better quarterback. They are at home. Ohio State has struggled on the offensive line, and McCord looks pretty pedestrian to me. And I know the defensive line is very decorated, and all of these guys are going to be drafted in the first round, and so is Marvin Harrison. But so far, they haven't impressed me. They've been saving themselves for this game. I think this is a spot where Ohio State goes down, and I'm going to love it. So I'll take Notre Dame +3, as I am all over the Irish this week with my lock of the week, and I don't even want those 3 points. But you're saying it's up to 3.5. I'll take them. But I like Notre Dame as my lock of the week over Ohio State.
Last week we were pretty cordial. This week we got some different fights going on here. I'm gonna add another one to the table here. I got Oregon State as my lock of the week.
Right.
-3 against Washington State. When I looked at this game, Oregon State just has the better line of scrimmage, I think, on both sides of the ball. I think their O-line is better than Washington State's D-line. And I think the reverse is also true, that their D-line is better than Washington State's O-line. The way to beat Oregon State is really to run the football. They're not particularly good at stopping the run. But it's probably the weakness of their entire team. But for Washington State, they have Cam Ward at quarterback. Their offense really runs through him. They want to chuck it all over the yard, which kind of plays into the strength of what is the Beavers' defense. So I just don't really like that matchup for them. I think it's a bad matchup for the Cougars. Oregon State's like a power run team. Washington State is particularly thin on the D-line. So I think they'll be able to move and reset the line of scrimmage over and over again pretty consistently. And those 3 and 4 yard runs early in the game are going to turn into 5 and 6 later on. And Damian Martinez, DJU on offense there for Oregon State. DJU's been playing pretty well, former Clemson quarterback. I got the Beavers by a touchdown here, so I'll take them -3 as my lock of the week.
I think you're underestimating the home field. You don't just walk into Pullman. You don't just pull up to Pullman. You better be ready to go. The Cougs crowd will be ready, and I think that's what will take them. I don't even want the 3 points. So good. We're at odds. We'll find out. And that's the way it should be. It's going to be a great day. We'll find out when the smoke clears who's standing on the top of the mountain. Great job, Lucas. Enjoy the day tomorrow. Get a lot of rest tonight, because you're going to need it if you want to stay up and watch all of these games.
All
right. Enjoy it. We'll talk with you next week. All right. There he is. Reimink. I'm Dennis Fithian.